And we begin this morning with former Trump attorney Michael Cohen, scheduled for another round of now closed-door testimony before the House Intelligence Committee this Wednesday. This as Democrats ramp up their own investigation into the proposed Trump Tower project in Moscow. Joining me right now in an exclusive interview is the ranking member of that committee. He is Republican Congressman from California, Devin Nunes. He also sits on the House Ways and Means Committee. And Congressman, it's always a pleasure to see you.
Great to be with you.
Thanks so much for joining us. First, reaction to Michael Cohen this past week, and give us a sense of why it's important to go from the public hearing last week. Now he's going to be in front of your committee behind closed doors this upcoming week.
So remember, he was in public with the Oversight Committee. Then he came behind closed doors with us for no reason at all. This is not a man who has any classified information whatsoever. We interviewed him for some 8-9 hours. In fact, Republicans were pretty much done with interviewing after a couple sessions. We didn't have any more questions to ask him. We're not sure why he's coming back, but he'll be back this week once again in a classified setting for someone who has no classified information. So from my perspective, it's all about building out a narrative. They want to keep it behind closed doors so that they can conveniently say, well, we can't talk about what happened behind closed doors, when the reality is we can talk about whatever we want to talk about because the guy has no classified information. It's ridiculous.
He said a couple of things this past week that some people are wondering if he perjured himself again by saying he never wanted a job in the White House. And then I thought there was something really interesting in terms of the work you've done so well for the last year and a half on the dossier. He said he was never in Prague. And,
right.
and isn't it true that in the dossier said that he went to Prague to go meet with Russian officials to meddle into the U.S. election?
Yeah. This is why they don't want him outside. They want him behind closed doors so that we can't talk about the testimony. The bottom line is that Cohen was great for Republicans. It was great for Donald Trump because we now know that the dossier was total bunk. There was no truth to it. And we know that because that Cohen has testified now publicly that he wasn't in Prague and there was no truth to anything in the dossier.
And he said there was no collusion, by the way.
No collusion, no collusion, no conspiracy, no obstruction. You know, these are all issues that were essentially made in that dossier that was the Democrat, remember, for the viewers out there, I think a lot of people forget, this was the Democratic Campaign Committee working with the Clinton campaign that produced this dirt, fed it into the FBI to start this investigation in the first place. It was totally debunked this week, and it'll be debunked again next week.
And you've been investigating this now for upwards of 2 years. You've told us a lot. You've informed the public a lot in terms of what took place in the 2016 election. I don't think without you and your colleagues, we would even know what really took place by this cabal of people at the top of the FBI and the DOJ.
There's still more to come. We're going to keep interviewing people. We're going to get this information out.
So tell us about that, because you are wrapping up your investigation. You've got a couple of things to do. One of them is you've provided a list of the people that you'd like to come down to speak to you and get testimony of them. So we've got this list. Go through some of these names and why they're important. Tashina Gohar, Gregory Brower, John Carlin, Kevin Kleinsmith. Tashina Gohar is important. Why?
So these are all names that we had sent to our Republican task force at the end of the last Congress. These names are all important because we need to know if these people were involved in the chain of custody of the dossier that we just referred to, because the dossier makes claims that this information came from Russians. So all the names that are on this list that we didn't get to last year that still need to be interviewed, if we're really looking for Russian collusion, we need to know if any of those people were actually talking to Russians on behalf of the Clinton campaign or any other operative, you know, whether it's Fusion GPS. What Russians were they actually talking to? Because, look, they could be the problem. They could be, these Clinton people could be the ones that were in bed with Russians, for all we know.
So these are
or it could be total nonsense.
Many of these names are associated with Hillary Clinton.
Right.
And obviously names like Jake Sullivan, who was a PR guy, I believe, for Hillary Clinton.
Right.
Robbie Mook, another PR guy for Hillary Clinton. Sidney Blumenthal, tell me why he's on your list.
Well, he was also involved in one of the dossiers. So there's several versions of the dossiers. Okay, so this was dirt that he was feeding into through friends and acquaintances that got into the State Department, right? So remember, the dossier came in very different angles all over the place into the FBI and DOJ. Some of those people in the Clinton campaign, I think a lot of people forget this. Why would people in the Clinton campaign be tweeting out messages about Trump's involvement with Russia? It's because they had the dossier. They were promoting this message, this dirt, out there in 2016. And we need to ask these Clinton campaign people, where they got it from. Did they get it from Glenn Simpson and Fusion GPS, the dossier that they were paying for, or did they get it from some Russian friends of theirs that they know of? The bottom line is that everything that was in that dossier, all the accusations that were made, whether it was tweets from the Hillary campaign, press releases from the Hillary campaign, it was all nonsense. It was stuff they were feeding into the press. The press was writing about it. They were tweeting it out and promoting it out. And they were all in on it. It was part of their strategy to get this narrative out that Donald Trump colluded with the Russians, give it to the media, let the media drive the bus on all of it. And it actually worked, because at the end of the
year
day,
and a half later, we're still talking about the potential of this.
That's right. And that's why we're trying to get to the bottom of who was involved. That's why we have all these lists of people we need to interview. We didn't know what their involvement was.
All right, so this is a list of 32 people. Do you think you're ever going to get these people to come down and give you testimony? You don't have subpoena power anymore. Your colleagues are trying to lift every rock and look for a crime around Donald Trump.
So the Democrats claim that they're going to be so much nicer than we were to them. So remember, we gave them every single witness they wanted over the last 2 years when we were in the majority. They claim they're going to give us witnesses. So far, they've given us 0 witnesses. So if they continue not to give us any witnesses, we will ask all of these people to voluntarily come in to Congress to talk to us. If they won't come in, we will either do it through the courts, or we'll send it over to the Senate and hope that Lindsey Graham and his team can get to the bottom.
And Senator Graham has been with us many times over the last several weeks, and he said he's doing a deep dive. He's going to bring the necessary people to testify. In fact, he's going to interview definitely the people who signed the FISA warrant. So as you wrap up your investigation, you've got these 32 names you want to interview. You've got number 2, declassification. Are we ever going to see declassification for some of the documents that you think are most important to educate the American people about this?
Yeah, I kind of sum it up this way. There's really 5 areas. The interviews we just talked about. There's the criminal referrals that have to be made. There's the declassification, radical declassification. We need to have declassification across from everyone we interviewed to everyone that Mueller interviewed. Then we're going to have fundamental FISA reform. We can never again let the FISA process be used to target political campaigns, right? We can't let our intelligence capabilities be targeted and pointed at political campaigns.
Yeah, they went to the FISA court and they said, look, we have this dirty dossier, and that's the reason that we're going to spy on the Trump campaign, essentially.
Yeah, and not only that, they not only did they get a warrant to get into somebody's emails on the campaign and get to be able to suck all that up, emails and listen to phone calls and all of that, they also opened a counterintelligence investigation into a political campaign. Now, these are tools that are supposed to be used to go after terrorists, the people that destroyed the buildings here in New York. And then the final thing that we have to deal with is, the media was involved in all of this disinformation campaign. They were given the dossier, and they spread it out. They spread numerous fake news stories about myself, the work that we were doing on the committee, many members on our committee, staff on our committee. That's going to have to be dealt with, too. This disinformation campaign, the slander and the libel will all have to be dealt with.
You're saying you're going to deal with the misinformation out there. How do you deal with that? You've referred to them in the past as tech oligarchs to me.
Yeah, so there's 2 ways that they're doing it. So the fake news media, they're putting out fake news stories. Sometimes it comes from the Democrats, right? In the dossier, they feed it to the media runs a story. And then the numerous tech companies out there that are really controlling what all Americans see, right? So what these tech companies have become is they try to pretend that they're not, but they're content developers. They're developing content, okay, through 2 ways. 1, algorithms, so they're controlling what you and I see when we get on our device. So for them to say that they're not developing content is nonsense. The other thing that they're doing is they're monetizing this. So there's some people that will not get rewarded. Like if you're a conservative out there putting conservative videos together, you're not going to get money for that, right? People are not going to advertise on that. Right. So all this has got to be dealt with, I think, in the future.
All right, let me get back to that because I want to find out how you're going to do that. But speaking of interviews and your team looking at who you want to speak to, I want to talk about this letter that your colleagues, Mark Meadows and Jim Jordan, sent to the Attorney General, William Barr. And basically they are asking for a number of things from the AG. And they mention in particular Andrew Weissman and Zainab Ahmad. These are 2 individuals that worked at the Department of Justice and now work at the Special Counsel's office. Can you tell me about Andrew Weissman and Zainab Ahmad?
So Weissman is the number 2. It's Mueller's deputy. He was involved in the custody of the dossier. So in early 2016, he was given the dossier. This is somebody, him and the other individual that's mentioned there, both DOJ people, both on the Mueller team. They shouldn't be involved in this investigation. I don't know. Well, and the questions that my colleagues are asking is you know, there's clear regulations that DOJ has that, you know, you can't be conflicted. And so they're asking questions. Look, did they disclose to Mueller before Mueller picked them that they were involved in the chain of custody of this dossier? Because I will tell you, if I was, I mean, I don't know that they're going to have any, you know, criminal indictments or not. But if I was any attorney, I'd be saying, look, these people that are bringing this forward, they shouldn't be involved in this because they're biased. We already know the people that were kicked off for bias. But you also have the fact that these 2 individuals that Jim Jordan and Mark Meadows are asking about were involved in the chain of custody of important evidence, the dossier, the dirt from the Clinton campaign, that is the basis for this entire hoax.
This is important because for a long time I've been asking the question, can the Robert Mueller special counsel report have credibility if it doesn't look at what we know to have been wrongdoing by this cabal of people at the top of the FBI? So Jim Jordan and Mark Meadows writes to Bill Barr and they say this: number 1, we would like you to identify all actions taken by Weissman and Ahmad, including disclosures, to apprise the department or the special counsel's office of their role in the events Bruce Ohr testified to about supplying the FBI with information relating to the Trump campaign. So they also want to explain all the actions taken by Weissman and Ahmad after learning that Steele, Simpson, and Nellie Ohr were providing Bruce Ohr information for the purpose of relaying it to the FBI. Provide all documents and communications referring or relating to disclosures made by Weissman and Ahmad, and provide documents and communications related to the process the department used to evaluate prosecutors and investigators' independence. So they're right now still working on the special counsel's investigation, Robert Mueller.
They're not independent investigators. These are people that were in on this from the beginning. They knew about the dossier. They brought this dossier forward. I don't know if they told. Maybe they told Mueller. Mueller decided to waive these requirements that are there. Also, let's not forget. We also have evidence that at one time that Weissman was meeting with reporters. And, you know, so you have this, and this is part of this whole disinformation campaign. You know, I should have said this earlier. It's not just the media. It's not just that they were getting it from the Clinton campaign. You also had people within the Department of Justice and the FBI that were briefing reporters. Now, what on earth are you doing briefing reporters? What was Weissman doing talking to AP reporters? Right? We've asked those questions and never got the answers.
Yeah. Well, it's a good point that you make. Jordan and Meadows want this information from the AG by March 15th at 5 p.m. We are awaiting the final report from special counsel Robert Mueller into possible Russian collusion. The president says that it will be up to Attorney General Bill Barr to determine just how much from the report will be made public. Joining me right now in an exclusive interview is former Whitewater independent counsel Ken Starr, also a former U.S. Solicitor General. Great to see you, sir. Thanks very much for joining us this morning.
Oh, my pleasure, Maria.
First,
thank you.
On the Mueller report, what are you expecting? What should we be looking at once that report does drop?
I think we should go back to what Bill Barr said in his confirmation hearings, Maria, and that is he is going to receive a confidential report. Now, the word confidential has to have meaning. That is what the regulations say, and then he, Bill Barr, will make the determination of what goes up to Congress. So we're behind the veil of ignorance. We don't know. But I think we're already seeing indications, especially from the Michael Cohen testimony, the way that entire episode unfolded is there may be less to the Mueller report as it's publicly available than meets the eye. He may also just say there's no, first of all, he presumably will say no collusion because thus far as you well know, there's been no evidence of collusion with the Russians.
Right. Well, what about what we've been talking about all morning with Devin Nunes, Carolyn Maloney, the fact that there was wrongdoing, there have been criminal charges inferred or suggested by the Inspector General for Andrew McCabe. Will we see accountability? What does that mean, criminal charges refers?
Right. It's a process that simply has to unfold. And I know it's frustrating on this side of the process until those decisions have been made. But one of the things that we saw this week was just a remarkable set of questions, and now that's what the conversation is about, from Michael Cohen. And one of the things that's not being, you asked Congresswoman Mahoney a bit about this,
right,
which is credibility. The first thing you ask about a witness is the witness credible?
Right.
And there are serious issues of credibility.
Well, we're going to talk more about this.
We've
got an extensive segment with you coming up.